Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses on Spotify. My name is Dr. Brian Smith, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses. On today's episode, I am going to have an exclusive interview with a human resource expert to help you get the job that you want, the job that you need, and the job that you will love. It has been said that money doesn't buy happiness, but poverty doesn't buy anything. You are putting everything you have into your career to get the best education you can. Now, this episode is for nursing students, but also young nurses, nurses in the field, healthcare workers, but anyone who is searching and looking to have the best job that they can. So I encourage you to listen to this episode. It's entitled, Money Doesn't Buy Happiness, but Poverty Doesn't Buy Anything. I have a special guest today in my studio talking about to get the best job that you can for the best life that you can. And I want to introduce my guest today. My guest is Kyle Smith. He is the Director of Human Resources for Kent Displays. He is a seasoned HR professional with over 25 years experience in the field. He is distinguished by his unwavering commitment to nurturing talent, promoting employee well-being, and driving organizational success. He has a rich academic background. He has an MBA with a focus on human resources. He's got a bachelor's degree in psychology. Kyle has continuously evolved his expertise to create harmonious workplaces where individuals can thrive. His current pursuit of a master's in clinical mental health counseling exemplifies his dedication to facilitating holistic growth and personal fulfillment. He often speaks on topics related to recruitment, employee retention, and employee and candidate success. He is currently the host of the HR Kyle podcast, heard over most popular podcast platforms. So, welcome, Kyle.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
As you all know, this podcast, Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses, is geared mostly for nursing students or young nurses, as well as anyone in the nursing field. But we also want to include those of you who are looking to fulfill your career in a workplace where you can gain some expertise today. So I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle, knowing that a lot of my nursing students are listening right now, and also many people in the healthcare field. Kyle, go right ahead.
Absolutely. And Brian, thank you for having me today. In thinking about your students, my hunch would be that their graduation date is probably early May. First thing I want to address is the fact, and it's a question I get often, when should I start my job search? My suggestion would be we're early November at this point. I would really start doing your research now. And what I mean by research is look at organizations that you possibly want to work for. And again, remember this, for your profession as well as any profession, most jobs are the same or incredibly similar. What sets the job apart is the work environment, the company culture, the total benefits package they offer, because again, pay is going to be relatively equal. A nurse at one hospital or one facility is going to be paid virtually the same as a nurse at another facility. But the difference is going to be those other things that we overlook sometimes, and that is the company culture, the structure of the organization, the total compensation, and I'll elaborate on that in a moment what that means. Those are the differences. So your doing your research now to understand those things and those differences between organizations. That leads us to our next point. When do you legitimately start your search, meaning applying for positions? So you've done your research, you've identified some organizations that you're interested in further. January, February timeframe, you should be searching in earnest for a position. What I mean is you're reaching out to the organizations if they don't have job postings, letting them know that you're interested in working for them. If you see job postings then, January, February, apply to them. Again, send your resume in, make sure they know that you're interested. Even if they're looking to hire immediately for that position, they may well have additional positions that will become open later in the spring that they would be willing to hire you for. Again, your goal at that point is to get your resume in the hands of decision makers at organizations that you're interested in. Now, let's take a step back, and I mentioned about total compensation and culture and so on. How do you find out this information? Well, culture, you're looking on sites such as Indeed, you're looking on sites such as Glassdoor for reviews. And these are employee reviews and they're candidate reviews. And you're seeing what these individuals are saying about that organization. So that's a data point for you. Keep in mind, it's just one. It's one data point. But you're looking to see what current and past employees say about that organization. So you're getting that information. You're looking up surveys to see if that organization is a participant in any survey that talks about employee well-being, employee satisfaction, and so on. There's a bunch of those out there, and I won't go into them, but some of them you may have heard of, at least in my part of the state. North Coast 99, Great Places to Work is another survey that's out there. The Cleveland Plain Dealer does an employee survey each year, and they identify desirable employers. So you're looking for those kind of things. And if you're in Columbus area, I'm sure Columbus Dispatch does a similar type of survey each year to say, hey, these are the desirable employers. So you're looking for that information as well. Again, you're getting your data points that tell you, hey, here's what it's like to work here. The good thing about nursing is as much a fraternity as it is a profession. What I mean by that is there's nurses that are coming out of the program that you're in. There are nurses that have graduated from that program, moved on. Those are people that you can network with, again, to find out what it's like to work at that particular employer. Because if they have worked there or if they worked there in the past, they're going to have an opinion, and that's a valuable opinion to you. So talk to those individuals and say, hey, what's it like working there? What are these things? And again, you're starting to drill down now on the topics of interest to you. So let's say, for example, you've identified work-life balance as being important and meeting your family commitments. Ask your contacts and read up about that organization on how they address those issues. And don't just look at the words. Everybody's going to say, hey, we're family friendly, we're good work-life balance. Look at what they do to support that. Ask your contacts, what's it like being a parent and having obligations outside of work and working at this organization? And make sure they give you examples, because that's the truth. Trust me, every organization now is going to say, we're family friendly, work-life balance is important to us. Diversity is another one everybody throws around now. Hey, we're diverse friendly or whatever. Look for the facts. Look for the details that say, yes, here's evidence to support the claim that they're making. Okay, that's the first part. Let's talk about the total compensation. I talked about this a moment ago. Total compensation is more than just pay. Total compensation is the benefits package. And what I mean there is not only the offering. Again, most companies are going to offer you medical, dental, vision, etc. You're going to have the full package. What you're starting to look at is, how much does it cost for me to participate in those programs? There is a huge difference between employers. And many times employers hide that detail because people don't think about it. But when you're paying for part of those benefits each month, that's cutting into your take-home pay. So again, you're probably starting out equal depending on the employer. Most employers are paying you as a new RN virtually the same pay. But that benefit cost is cutting into that take-home pay. Never forget that. One place you're paying $100 per pay for your benefits, in another place you're paying $50, then you've just cut your pay by $50 each paycheck. Again, doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're paid over an entire year, that's $1,300 less that you've earned from one employer to the next, right? 50 times 26 if you're paid twice every 2 weeks. So that's part of total compensation. Another part of total compensation is your vacation offering. So many employers, in your first year of employment or when you first start with them, they may not offer much vacation at all. They may only offer a week, and you have to be there for 3 or 4 or 5 months before you can take it, and you don't have priority over the holidays, et cetera, et cetera. Understand what that means. Again, going in, you don't think about it. You take it for granted. But the first time a holiday rolls around, and you've got a family event coming around, and you want to take some time off, and your employer says, well, we can't do that. We need you to work over Thanksgiving because you're the new person. You've only been here for 3 months. That's where that benefit comes into play. So understand how much is your vacation offering? How does it used? How does it accumulate? Because that's a difference between employers. And it's one that we miss. So understand the vacation offering. Here's another one that's huge. 401k. Most employers now are offering a 401k, meaning you can take a percentage of your pay and have it invested in various investment options. And there's all the major players out there that you've probably heard of, the Fidelities, the John Hancocks of the world, and so on, that employers partner with to offer these 401k plans, these retirement plans. But there's a difference between employers. The difference is in a company match. And what a company match is that says, hey, employee, if you put a certain percentage of your pay each time into this investment, into this 401k, we're going to match it. Okay. The typical ones that I see is they'll match dollar for dollar of your investment up to 3% or 4%. So let's talk about what that looks like from a practical standpoint. Let's say, for example, that you're earning $50,000 a year at this particular employer, and they say, okay, employee, for every 4% you put into your 401k, we're going to kick in another 4%. So 4% of 50,000 is 2,000. They've then kicked in another $2,000. Well, to me, that's hitting your bottom line. They're not paying you $50,000 a year anymore. They're really paying you $52,000. Okay, so that's part of your total compensation, and that $2,000 adds up over time. It's amazing the power of multiples, how that money will grow over a short period of time. But again, that $2,000 that they're kicking into your 401k is part of your total compensation package. You've got to consider those things. Another thing to consider is, does the employer offer other incentives? So those are things like attendance bonuses and performance bonuses and holiday bonuses and so on. A lot of employers offer that as well, or those special kind of benefits. Find out about those. Those have value. Again, it's not unusual for an employer to say, hey, here's an additional $500 for the year, or an attendance bonus of $500. Again, those are real dollars. That adds up. Look for, too, and I see this especially in nursing, look for signing bonuses. But make sure you understand how they work. In some cases, it may be a $2,000 signing bonus once they hire you. In other cases, it may be a $2,000 signing bonus, but it's paid out over a certain period of time, or certain criteria have to be met. Again, make sure you understand the details of those. But bottom line is, that's extra dollars that you're being paid. Again, it's what I speak to when I say total compensation. It's your pay plus those additional benefits that you're being provided to work there. So again, those are the things you're looking for. So let's take a quick review. Now we're early November. Start doing your research. Learn about these organizations, their culture, their benefit offerings, all those things that they offer to work there, what it means to work there. Work your network as well, so you can gather that information. January, February, start applying. Applying means applying to jobs that are listed, or sending your resume and your credentials to employers of interest to say, hey, I'm out here. I'm interested in working for you. And again, there's a lot of resources online that can help you to draft that cover letter. Remember, too, when you're looking at these organizations, look at those total compensation factors that I said, not just pay, the additional things. Again, Brian, that's where I would lead off with your listeners. Some basic information there. Let me know what else you would like to talk about this morning.
Well, Kyle, that's actually very valuable information. I'm learning as we go along here also. I'm imagining that my students have some questions that maybe I can help them out with. What would you recommend that they wear to a job interview?
Yeah, great question. I always say dress business professional. And if you don't know what that means, look it up online, because there's definitely definitions between business casual, business professional, business casual, and then just plain casual. So for an interview, you always want to go business professional. And I'll break this down in simple terms. You go to an interview and you're business professional, they're going to be impressed, whether that's their dress code or not. It could be a casual environment. But nobody ever went into an interview and said, gosh, you overdressed for this, we're not going to hire you. That's never happened. But what has happened is the person goes to an interview and the people say, gosh, that's how you're going to dress? Mm-hmm. And you don't get the job opportunity. Always dress to impress. But again, keep it business professional. Look online, do a Google search as to what that means, because for both men and women, it's clearly defined as to what that means.
I think it's also important to be careful with the cologne. There's little things that we have to watch for, but I have been in job interviews and the candidate left a vapor trail when they left. So you want to be careful of that. Is there anything else, because you've been in hundreds of job interviews, that would be something that would be a negative that you can think of? And it's the little things that we're looking for sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I'm glad you mentioned that, because, we talked about the little things in the job situation, how on the surface, all jobs are pretty equal and companies are equal. The same holds true for interviews as well. Most candidates on the surface are equal. So what we're looking for on the hiring side is what sets that person apart. And you hit it on a couple of things. Think about the things that are important in your profession as a nurse. Brian mentioned cologne or perfumes or what have you. You wouldn't go heavy on that if you were working in a facility. Don't go heavy on it when you're in your interview. Same would hold true of jewelry and those kind of things. In your day-to-day work as a nurse, you're not going to be extravagant on jewelry and those kind of accessories. Make sure that you don't do that in your interview. The other thing that we're looking for is those extra things. Does this person seem polished? Are their nails clean? All of these things that, again, I would make a judgment call for you as a nurse. Does this person seem clean? Do they communicate well? Do they relate to others well? Are they able to connect well? Those are things that I'm looking for as you're walking in. Here's some other basic things to think about. Shake everyone's hand. Use their name. Thank them for meeting with you. Thank them for the opportunity. Always do your follow-ups. I give an example in my show that we had a situation where we had two candidates. They were equal. We could have gone with either one. The deciding factor was one of them sent a thank you note to everyone, thanking them for the opportunity to interview, et cetera, et cetera. The other one didn't. I always joke, the one that sent the thank you note, we had a name for her. You know what we called her?
No.
Employed.
Exactly. Very good points.
So it's those little, Brian, it really is those little things. You said that it is, because again, most people are pretty equal. Everybody comes in, they've got their resume, they are all cleaned up, they look nice, all these things, they say all the right things. Look for the things that set you apart, because the other thing I say is help that employer imagine you in that job. You're going to help them do that. Because when you're coming in, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, okay, we've got Brian here in front of us. Can we imagine Brian working for us? But what you want to do as the interviewer or interviewee is you're going to help them do that. So you're going to give examples of things that you know about that organization. that you can help them with, or that you know are important to them. For example, maybe in your research you found that something that's important to the organization is giving back or donating time. Well, in the course of talking with them, you be sure that you make them well aware that you know that's a priority to them, and that's also something that's a priority to you. Again, there's where that research starts to come into play. So again, bottom line, help that employer imagine you working for them. The other thing too, smile. Seems so basic, but people respond positively to a smiling face. So you have that eye contact, you're smiling, they're using their name, you're creating familiarity that helps you connect with that person. And I hate to say it, but it's absolutely true. About 90% of those interactions are about the nonverbals and the tone. Only a small percentage of it really is about the content. Because quite frankly, we've looked at your resume. We know what you're capable of. We know your training. If you're coming out of a major university such as Ohio State, we know the caliber of the candidate. You're not trying to prove that. You're trying to prove that we can work well together.
Great point. We are talking to Kyle of his podcast is HR Kyle, and this is Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses. What would be a great way to answer the question, tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I get that a lot, and that's generally going to be your kickoff question. A couple of things to remember. Make that about 3 to 4 sentences tops. And remember, when they're asking you to tell about yourself, they're talking about in a work situation. They're not talking about personally. Never lose sight of the fact that you're in an interview and you're in that interview to talk about a job situation. So you don't kick it off by saying, well, I'm a 25-year-old. I just got married. We're planning on having kids. We take a vacation every year to Virginia Beach or this. And it sounds funny, but I've had people answer that question that way
all the time.
And no offense, I'm not interested. We're not. You and I aren't planning on connecting or dating. It isn't about that. It's about answering the question. Again, remember what I said a moment ago. Help them imagine you in the job. So how are you doing that? You're talking about your qualifications as a professional. You talk about the fact that you're a recent graduate of XYZ University. In your coursework, here's some of the things that you focused on. Again, if there's special things that you focused on in your program that set you apart, mention those things. Mention about prior work history, but make sure it relates to the job that you're being hired in for. We're not interested to hear, I just earned my degree from whatever university, and while I was working there, I was a server at Rockneys or whatever. It doesn't matter. Share your experiences that relate to the job that you're hiring for. But again, your summary helps me imagine you in that role. So how do you do that? And here's another key. Brian, I want to make sure your listeners know this. When you apply to jobs, make sure you take a picture of the job posting, because that's what you're going to be speaking to in the interview. So to Brian's question, when they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, you're telling about yourself as it relates to that job posting. And you're taking a picture when you apply, because many times that posting may be gone by the time you're interviewing. And you have no idea. You're like, well, I know it's an RN position, but I don't know much more about it. But if you've taken a picture with your phone of that job posting, you've got a record of it. And you're answering that tell me about yourself question related to that job posting.
That is a great point. Well, I thought we had a lot of good points presented today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. We'd like to do it again. We're going to conclude our podcast today with Kyle Smith, the HR director at a large firm in Cleveland. And you can direct any questions you have for either one of us to brianlyon1957@gmail.com. And Kyle, I'm going to give it to you one more time for your HR Kyle email address, and I'll let you conclude and have the last word on our podcast today.
No, thank you, Brian. A couple of things. As Brian mentioned, I do have a podcast that I record weekly. It's called the HR Kyle Podcast. If you would like to email questions to me specifically, you can send those to hrkyle@me, hrkyle.com. So hrkyle at M as in Mary, E as in Edward.com. And happy to answer your questions, even if it's, hey, here's my resume. Can you take a look at it? Happy to do that. If you're applying to a certain company and you'd like some advice or guidance or maybe some information about that company, I know a lot of organizations throughout Ohio. I can give you some objective feedback if you're needing that. Again, if you have questions about interviewing, applying to jobs, searching for a job, doing the right things, check out my podcast. And again, feel free to email me any questions.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. And again, this has been Dr. Brian Smith on Smart Lawyers Love Dumb Nurses on Spotify.